God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 3 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Bob Dylan Menard, Southern California. I'm Dave Daba, which of course makes no sense, up in Northern California, and we are here to give you the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this weekend. Mr. Hoyseth, I don't know if you heard this, but Kirk Cousins, he's like a groundhog. He saw a shadow and he went back in the hole as the Vikings and regime change. And I think you pointed out on the last show that I was being a bit of a homer, and I think you might have been right about that.
Yeah, we just know what Kirk Cousins is. It should be no mystery anymore. It doesn't matter if you change the ownership group or the management group or the coaching group. He's still Kirk Cousins. He's not good under pressure. He's terrible in 2-minute drills. He'll probably look great again this weekend against the Lions. He always seems to beat them, but the Vikings are not a great primetime team. I saw where Cousins is now 2-10 on Monday Night Football, worst record in the history of the league on Monday Night Football. And one of us picked that game right last week, Dave. So I don't want to go. I don't want to go into anything, but
I just flat out ignored and it's the strangest. Like, have you ever seen a player of sort of Cousins caliber in sort of like just play completely different after the sun goes down? It is unbelievable. Now I'm confident that Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach is bad in the day and he's equally bad at night. I don't think there's any difference in how bad Nathaniel Hackett can be as a head coach. And Brad, before we get into this, I did just want to say that my halftime fire watch is absolutely on this week. As you know, I've been dreaming of the day where a coach gets fired at halftime, and Nathaniel Hackett and Sunday Night Football, you just watch the new ownership group of the Denver Broncos can him at halftime because he made some legitimately terrible decision. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, well, I had a great week last week, obviously. I think I went 7-3. That's hard. That's hard to do at this level. Picking football games, Vegas is pretty good. I got lucky in a couple games. But I also got unlucky in the Rams game. The Rams were -10, and they looked like they were going to cruise and beat that spread, and they ended up, kind of gagging it away. But it was a good week. I'm off to a good start. So obviously, I'm anxious to get things going again here in week 3.
All right. As am I, Mr. Hoyseth. I can tell you that this Rams Super Bowl hangover is not just a Super Bowl hangover. This Rams team is in some real trouble right now. I mean, the good news is Seattle's in their division, and the 49ers are a little bit weakened, I guess.
I think the Rams are who they are. They're not really that dissimilar to what they were last year. They won the Super Bowl last year with their defense. I said it all year long. I can't stand Sean McVay's offense. I can't stand it. To me, it's just boring to watch. He tries to run the ball when he really can't run the ball. And the only time they ever seem to look exciting is when they get Cooper Kupp the ball about 10 or 12 times a game. And if they don't do that, they're relying on guys like Tyler Higbee and two mediocre running backs, both of which are just you could find on the in the scrap heap. So I just don't think they're I've never thought they're an exciting team to watch. They won last year because of Jalen Ramsey and some of those guys on the defense that made them special. But hey, let's jump into this week. because I'm going to start out with a team that is special. It's the Bills, and they're playing at the Dolphins. In my opinion, that might be the game of the week. The Bills are making believers out of everybody, right? And I've said all year long, I think the Dolphins could be a sleeper. I think this is a big game early on. I'm playing the over-under, which is at 53.5. And it started out at 51.5. So that thing has gone up a couple of points. I'm not really sure what they're seeing. I think the Bills have got one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best defense in the league. And one team's got a great defense. It's pretty hard to reach 53.5. And so I also think the Dolphins have got a very good defense. And I see this thing going way under 51.5 or 53.5 rather. I'm not sure why the line went that direction. I would go the other direction. And I'm going to play the under on this thing between the Bills and the Dolphins.
As the weather forecast started to come out, Brad, which was rising temperatures in Miami, the over suddenly got higher, and I'm not really sure why, but it's going to be a hot day in Miami. 80 plus degrees. Water is going to be at a premium. So I sort of look at this and I look at Tua and I look at this defense that you appropriately mentioned with the Buffalo Bills, basically having one of the best defenses in the National Football League. And that's a big difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills through 2 weeks of the season. Both of their offenses are phenomenal, but the Bills defense is ranked basically first in the National Football League right now. And they're in a far better position to shut down the Miami Dolphins, who got, I don't know what happened to the Ravens last week, but the Ravens, it was killing me. That game last week absolutely killed me. The Ravens had two cornerbacks who are rookies, and that seems to be where the problem is. Like, you could have played for the Miami Dolphins, Mr. Hoysaf in his Menard shirt and his Bob Dylan hat. You could have ran down the field and been wide open. Like those cornerbacks and safeties would have been confused, Hoysaf. Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm going with the under.
Yeah, I mean, last week, I don't know if the line moved up because of what Tyreek Hill did last week, or what the reason was climbed 2 points. You're not going to be able to do that to the Bills. You're not going to just see Tyreek Hill running, 7 yards free of a defender and against Buffalo. That's just not going to happen. So they're going to have to methodically go down the field. They're going to have to use Chase Edmonds in the running game. It's going to be a little bit different attack, I think, for the Dolphins this week. I think the Dolphins are a very, very good team. I said it all year long. I think Tua could be one of those guys that has a brealout year. I'll talk about another one. I'll talk about another one of those guys. I know that bothers you, but you look at the weapons that kid's got there now, and if last week is any indicator, playing the Ravens and the big game he had, it's only the beginning. He didn't have a lot of talent there previously.
How many touchdown passes did Tua have last week? Was it like 6?
I think he had like 6. Yeah, probably as much as he had in his entire career going in.
It's like my kid playing Madden footballs that throws 6 touchdowns in a game. That doesn't really happen in reality. And, I'm not one of these guys. Proof has got to be in the pudding, and it's going to take an entire season of pudding for me to jump back on the Tua bandwagon. I'm not anti-Tua. I just thought he'd be a lot better in the first couple of years of his career. He's sort of like, I guess, Jim Plunkett, where he got better as he got older. Is that what's happening here? I don't know what is the deal. Tua's improved. He gets the ball out faster than he used to. But I'm not in any way sold that he's like a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League right now. Going to need some more proof for that. All right, Brad, moving on to my first game. And this really is probably one of your, absolute favorite games this week. It is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are favored by 7 in this game. Trevor, aka Joey Lawrence. I know you're sort of believing that this Jacksonville Jaguars team is on the rise, which I don't get it. We will have to see. I think it's crazy for anybody to pick against the Chargers in this game. Chargers are going to beat them by double digits. I can't wait to send you texts if for some reason you decide to go with Trevor Lawrence in this game. I mean, Trevor Lawrence looks like one of those princes in those Disney Pixar movies, Hoysap. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, but Trevor Lawrence is healthy, and Justin Herbert, I'm not sure. And one of his best weapons over the years has been Keenan Allen. He's still a lingering hamstring. And then I think the biggest hamstring that the Chargers have is their head coach, how I feel about him. I don't think he's very good at all. I don't think he's going to be a coach very long in this league. The Chargers don't win games by more than 7 points, Dave. That's the problem, is this guy tends to, make a great team look very mediocre at times. I think Jacksonville's an improving team. Their defense has been great so far. You're going into I know it's a long trip across the country. It's a long ways to go to play a football game.
It's not like these players are on a Greyhound.
Hey, look, the bottom line, this line went from 10.5 to 7. I mean, a lot of people putting money on the Jags. I'm one of them. I'm still betting on the Jags at 7. I just don't believe the Chargers are capable of putting somebody away. I don't think Brendan Staley's a good coach. I think he's a choker. He makes a lot of irrational decisions. He's one of these sabermetrics guys. Thinks he has to go for it on 4th down, up 10 in the third quarter at his own 25-yard line. And those things, they just don't work out very well, Dave. And until he can win big games and prove me wrong, I'm going to bet against him. I love the Chargers. I love the talent. I just like the Jags in the 7 points. I think they're a better young team. I think you're going to see a trend this week. In the first game I had, I think Tua is a better quarterback than he was a year ago. I think Lawrence is a better quarterback than he was a year ago. And later on, we're going to get down to Justin Fields, who I think is a better quarterback than he was a year ago. So you got 3 young kids on my docket here today. This is number 2. I'll take Lawrence and the Jags with the 7 points.
Yeah, and honestly, 2 out of 3 of those quarterbacks had no place to go but up going into the season to begin with. The real reason that I'm picking against the Jags, and I think the Chargers will win by 7, is the defense. I think they're still improving. They're still getting their new pieces together. I'm a big fan of what the Chargers did on the defensive side of the ball. You might be absolutely right about this coach, and I think it's a decision the Charger organization has to start thinking about now. God forbid this Charger team doesn't make it to the playoffs. I mean, just pack your bags, Mr. Staley. I mean, you're done at that point. You can't have a quarterback of Herbert's talent not at least making it into the playoffs. Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl, but at least he was in the playoffs a bunch of times. And it's just you just have to. I mean, this Herbert kid is just so phenomenal. We're living in this like new era, Brad, of these young up and coming quarterbacks, and there's 3 or 4 of them right now, which quite frankly are NBC must see TV. And I can't wait to actually watch some of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the line dropped so much just because people didn't know about the availability of Herbert. They're saying, yeah, he's not going to be 100%. They're going to have to run the ball. It's going to be a different offense. They're not going to quite look the same. And I agree with all of those things. I mean, he looked like he was in a lot of pain last week in that game. You know, he is practicing limited this week. But yeah, he certainly is not going to be 100%. That's for sure. And I just like the way that Jaguar defense is playing. They've only given up like, I don't know, 28 points or 30 points or something in 2 games. It's been pretty tough to score on those guys. And, you know, granted, they haven't paid like an all-star cast so far, but, you know, the Chargers, Keenan Allen, dinged up. I'm going to take the 7. All right, I'm going to move on to my Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say at one point I thought he got up from the ground and his jersey said number 14 on it. I'll leave it at that.
Ravens at the Patriots. That's my second game. And the Ravens are a -3 on the road in New England. I find that kind of curious. I didn't think they looked very good last week. I still think their offense is, you know, kind of a gimmicky offense. You know, it's either Mark Andrews or nothing, it seems. And now they've lost Marquise Brown to the Cardinals. I just don't think it's a very talented team, Dave. I think Harbaugh it's kind of an inflection, big point for him here this season. And the Patriots are the team that just never dies. And they do have the ability to play some defense. I don't think they're great offensively. This is one of those games, probably the 5th game I chose. I didn't love the game, but at the same time, if you're going to give me the Patriots at home, I'm going to take the Patriots at home against what I think is a really mediocre Baltimore team. I'll take the Patriots in the 3 points.
Yeah, I'm going in the opposite direction. Can you imagine back in the heyday of the New England Patriots, the Ravens coming into New England favored by 3? You know, look, this New England organization is it's got defensive coordinators running its offense right now. I'm just saying, I look at this and you know, I'm a fan of Bill Belichick. I like this Ravens organization a lot as well. I've liked both of these organizations a lot over the years. I just think the upper hand here is, I mean, there's a reason it's 3 points and in favor of the Ravens. I don't think we're going to see another meltdown like we saw last week. Look, Brad, when you're playing in football or playing in any sport or you're in any business in life, you can never let your foot off the gas pedal. And I'm going to be scarred for this entire season over what happened to the Ravens last weekend. I just am. But I you know, they're not Ryan Tannehill shell shocked. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, it's an intriguing game. I mean, you know, 2 once proud organizations that maybe are showing signs of going in the wrong direction. You know, which one's going to rise up? I just like the Patriots at home. That's a tough place to beat New England. And, you know, going to give me a field goal. I think that feels about right, to be honest with you. So I just kind of flipped a coin on that one and took the Patriots.
All right. Next game on our docket. We've got a Monday Night Football game. The Dallas Cowboys are going into New York. The Giants, who are 2-0 on the season, and I have to say this, maybe the worst 2-0 football team I've seen easily in the last 10 years. This is a bad football team. Now, I always say I believe in good coaching. You know, I think Brian Daboll's done a good enough job, but this is just really a bad football team, Brad. And I can't wait for the Saquon Barkley rushes for less than 70 yards. He had 72 yards rushing last week. He's slowly steadying back down to the Saquon that we all know and don't respect. So as I sort of look at this, I'm just like, I think this Dallas Cowboy team is as a whole a little bit better. Mika, the defensive end that the Dallas Cowboys have, sort of is going into the house that I guess Lawrence Taylor sort of helped build. And so the question is he going to, you know, really sort of take it onto his shoulders? He literally can change a game for a football team. I'm not going to sit here and say anything about Emmitt Smith or Tony Pollard because they've both been capital D disappointments so far. Has CeeDee Lamb showed up yet at all? When will the real CeeDee Lamb please show up? I just think that this Dallas Cowboy team, that being said, all of those issues is just way better than Daniel Jones could ever be. And I'm going with the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, this is not a game I would have chosen. I don't like it when you got, you know, second string players in, and, you know, without Dak Prescott, I don't really know what to expect out of this Cowboy offense. I haven't seen much out of it in 2 weeks. You know, last week they showed signs in the first half of looking okay with Cooper Rush, and then the second half they just went silent and let the Bengals back in the game. You know, I love what they have on defense. I love the young kids they have there for the Cowboys. This game is in the Meadowlands, however. The Giants are 2.5. If it had been 3, I would have never bet the Giants. But it's 2.5. And I think that the worst 2-0 team becomes the worst 3-0 team, Dave. I just do. I could think of nothing better than seeing the disappointment on Jerry Jones's face. That might be my own bit of homerism there. I'm hopeful that the Giants can beat them. And I'm going to take the Giants and roll the dice and give the 2.5.
Yeah. Just be interesting to see what happens in this thing. I mean, like, you know, I'm not trying to say the Cowboys are a good football team. They're definitely not a great football team. They're an okay football team.
Yeah, I think we found out last week that they're clearly looking up the Philadelphia Eagles right now, though, in the NFC East. No question about that.
Well, at least the first half of the Philadelphia Eagle game, because the Viking defense just shut them down in the second half. I you know, like I think they looked better with Cooper Rush than they did with Dak Prescott in the second week of the season. You know, I just think they were not prepared for the start of the season. And I think that's what we're seeing with some of these teams who aren't playing their players during preseason. I think we're seeing a lot of that, and it's carrying in further into the season than it used to.
Yeah, speaking of two teams that have looked unprepared for 2 weeks, my next game is the Raiders at the Titans.
Yeah.
Both teams 0-2. Who would have figured that at the beginning of the year? I mean, you looked at these two rosters at the beginning of the year. You know, you got Derrick Henry back healthy for the Titans. Even though they don't have A.J. Brown anymore, you figure there'll be a little bit of a drop-off in the passing game. And then you got the Raiders who, you know, had the big offseason acquisition of the wide receiver. But they're both 0-2 and haven't looked very good either week. And the game is at Tennessee. The Raiders on the road are a 2.5-point favorite. I found that a little bit puzzling. I haven't seen anything in Las Vegas yet to make me believe they should be a 2.5-point favorite on the road, unless maybe they're playing the worst team in the league. I'm going to take the Titans. If you're going to give me 2.5 at home, I'm going to take it. I think you know, when you got Derrick Henry and that guy there, he's a difference maker. And Derek Carr to me is still is an enigma of a quarterback. He'll look great for a half, and then the second half, you wonder if it's even the same guy in the same uniform. So I'm going to take the Titans at home. Give me the 2.5.
It's like go out to your car and see if there's any tire tread issues on your car right now. That's what I feel like with Derrick Henry. He just looks he looks tired. He looks worn out, and the season just started. Could be I'm just not fully in player shape yet. But after watching Ryan Tannehill give his post-game press conference, Brad, I can't I can't get on this Tennessee Titans team right now. I really feel like Ryan Tannehill, the pressure of the rookie quarterback getting drafted, the backlash that he took for his comments, which he deserved, the way he played in the playoffs, as good as a coach as Mike Vrabel is, for them to, not be favored in this game against the Raiders, who have proven basically nothing to this point. You know what the Raiders have proven so far, Brad? They've proven that they forgot Josh Jacobs is on their roster. I mean, I sent a direct message to Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, the other night. Of course, he didn't respond, which isn't surprising. It was 2 words, Josh Jacobs. I mean, how can you not play Josh Jacobs more? I do not understand. The other thing I don't understand, which I have to believe they're going to correct when they look at the film. See, I believe they're going to get this Raider team back on track. And when they get the team back on track, then it's going to turn into something. But most of what I'm seeing is Derek Carr drops back to pass. There was a play designed for one of their wide receivers, and that's what they do. There is no progression in the offense. You don't see Derek Carr throwing to his third option at all in this offense. It like the Vikings, like all of these other teams that have new head coaches, they all have new playbooks that they're dealing with. And I think this playbook that Josh McDaniels has started to put into place isn't really working through week 2. So I have faith in the commitment to excellence that this Raider team is too good. It's got too many good pieces on both sides of the ball. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to win this game. So I'm going with the Raiders.
Yeah, you remember when Josh McDaniels was the head coach of the Denver Broncos? Yeah, nobody else does either because he wasn't any good. And maybe what we're dealing with here is a guy that's just a perfect example of the Peter principle. Maybe he's not a great coach. I haven't seen anything yet that leads me to believe suddenly the Raiders are going to be a team that's going to play for anything special. I just think going on the road, give it 2.5. I'm like, where'd that come from? I'm taking the Titans all day.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's got some of the Dennis Allen disease.
Easy.
I mean, I still can't believe people were all over Jameis Winston beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. I mean, just seriously think about what those people were saying. All right, moving on, Brad, to the next game I have on the docket. The Lions heading into the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, surprisingly, well, it's a day game. So, and it's a non-nationally televised game. So those are positives for Kirk Cousins right there. What would Kirk Cousins do if like the Vikings magically made it to the Super Bowl? Like, would the Vikings have like a quarter to get production out of Kirk Cousins and then have to bench him and go with a different quarterback because the sun's set? It is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So I looked at this game and I said, do I really believe in this offense at this point? I looked at both the first game and the second game. I taped both of them. I went back and I suffered. And I can tell you that outside of the first half, of the first game, this offense has been at historically low levels. It is not pretty. He's bringing over a lot of what you would call Sean McVay boringness to this offense. They can't figure out how to run the ball at all. And when you've got a guy like Dalvin Cook that you and I have talked about, that he's sort of like, he's one of those, he's a good running back if he can not be touched. He doesn't like contact. And this is football, Dalvin. There is contact in football. So I look at this and I think the Vikings are going to win the game, but I'm going to take Detroit, and I'll take your points from you.
Oh, Dave, you're killing me. I mean, look at the emotion. This is the most emotional Dave has been all year long, and it's week 3. It might be the most emotional I've ever seen you in 2.5 years of doing this show. Look, I told you guys last week that this Viking, that win in week 1 against the Packers was a fraud. It was a fraud.
Yeah.
In week 1, they got the ball to Justin Jefferson. That was it. It was a one-trick pony. What did we see last week? Kirk Cousins trying to force the ball into the hands of Justin Jefferson. When they got other people involved, they were fine. Now, the big drop by Irv Smith, I think, was a game changer. And I love Irv Smith. Right?
I was sitting there watching that, and I'm like, that's Hoyseff's guy.
No, I love Irv Smith, but that drop to me changed the complexion of the game. Yeah. He catches that ball, it's a walk in the end zone touchdown, and suddenly it's a close ball game, and the momentum changes, right? But it didn't happen. But there was some plays, and I really thought that Buck and Aikman missed out on a couple of calls. I don't know if you remember the 2 crossing patterns that Smith ran, and Cousins tried to throw it through a defender, and it didn't work out so well. They were both knocked down, incomplete. And Aikman suddenly said, well, they're expecting Irv Smith to win that one-on-one battle. What people didn't realize is that on both of those plays, there was a guy open in the flat that could have run for 30 yards, a running back. First one was Dalvin Cook. The second one, I think it was Madison that was on the field. If you just make the right read and hit the right guy, it's 3rd down and 7. You got to move the sticks. You can't throw it through a guy. The coverage on Smith was great.
It wasn't just those 2 plays, too. I mean, I think I had it at a whole hand worth of fingers in terms of
that would be 5.
That would be 5. Those people, but not for everybody.
I saw a lot more bad plays than 5. I could fill up I don't have enough feet and hands.
No, but just like those wide open made the definitely made the wrong decision. There was somebody wide, significantly more open than the other guy.
Yeah. But my point is this, and you mentioned his name earlier. Dalvin Cook touched the ball 6 times as a running back last week. You can't win like that. And yeah. Again, Kevin O'Connell, he's one of these young kids, metrics guy, probably plays Madden sports. It just does. You've got a weapon and a tool there. You have to use them. You've got to have a balanced offense. You just can't throw it in one direction. I believe the message was served this week to O'Connell. You got to get people involved. I think the Vikings will run the ball well. I think they will beat that spread. Kirk Cousins is, I think, 4-0 at home against, or 4-0 against the Lions, something like that. I believe the Vikings bounce back this week. I'm not real comfortable with the 7-point line. Or is it 6? What is it, 6 or 7?
It's 6.
Yeah, but I'm going to take the Vikings. I'm going to give the points. I wore my Menards shirt today, Dave, and I wore my Bob Dylan hat. Nothing says Minnesota more than Bob Dylan and Menards, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. And I think I pointed out I got chili going in the background there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I can't point. There it is. Yeah. Right there. That's the crock pot. And so I'm all ready for a big Vikings win this week. I'll take the Vikes. I will give the 6.
You got to love the only the finest special effects for you here today on this show. Brad, I waffled on this, as you might imagine, for quite some time. And then, I did a little more research. And do you know which team has scored the most points in the National Football League so far?
I don't know. Buffalo, I would say. I don't know.
Detroit. Heading into the Detroit Lions.
Here's another thing on that game with the Vikings last week, because I think I know where you're going with this. I don't think the Vikings defense is bad as Jalen Hurts made them look. To me, they were very close on a number of plays. They gave up 24 points, Dave. That's not a lot of points in the league.
And they didn't give up any points in the second half.
Yes, they gave up a lot of yardage. Yeah, but a lot of that yardage just because Jalen Hurts was just dead on. His passes were perfect. The ball placement was perfect. His decision-making was perfect. That was one of the best performances that we've seen from a quarterback in quite some time. I think the Eagles are for real. I don't think, though, that was I don't think that's a check mark against the Viking defense. I think they played okay. They did manage to get a turnover late, and then Cousins gave it right back. I think the Vikings defense shows up a little bit. Hey, look, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown on my fantasy football team. I love the kid. But if you're going to give me the Vikings versus Jared Goff, you know how I feel about Jared Goff. He might be one of the very few quarterbacks that I like less than Kirk Cousins. So I cannot take the Lions.
We both have Mr. St. Brown on our fantasy football teams this year. Yeah. And then there's the Jared Goff factor. I mean, he's looking good enough to maybe go hunting for a mansion someplace in the Detroit, Michigan area. Look, is there a mansion? Is there a mansion in the Detroit? I mean, I don't know. There used to be.
All right.
Yeah. Look, this Lions team is not your father's Lions team. I'm telling you, Dan Campbell's going to have these guys ready to play. Once again, I think the Vikes are going to win, but they're not going to win by 6.
All right. I guess it's my turn to go next. I'm going to stay in the old quote-unquote black and blue division. Texans are at the Bears, and the Bears are 2.5-point favorite. And I talked about Lawrence earlier, and I think I talked about Tua earlier. And I think the young kid there, Justin Fields, is just starting to make some moves like maybe he's going to be a guy. And I think the Texans have played better than what their roster would suggest. But I got the Bears at home with their 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to take the Bears in this one, Dave. I think that I don't think they're a good football team. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I see signs of them being a better team now. And a lot of that is because I think Justin Fields is starting to look like a professional quarterback. So he offers a little something in the, being able to run and take off and make plays. And I think he's showing signs of being maybe that guy that came out of Ohio State that everybody thought he was going to be.
Yeah. Thinking about this, I'm thinking, like, okay, you got some football games that you could say are like the Bloomingdale's of football games, or some Macy's, some Kohl's games. And then you've got like your dollar store football game. And that's what this is right here. This is like the like who the hell is going to watch this outside of those two markets? I mean, really. So I want to like the Houston Texans. I want to be able to come on this show and say that I think they're improving and they're heading in the right direction, and talk about some of their young running back and their a couple of their young weapons. And I want to talk about, say, positive things about Lovie Smith, who had a winning record, by the way, in Chicago as a head coach. He was like 20 games over 500 as a head coach in Chicago. So, I mean, but that was before the beard went gray. So
yours or his, by the way?
Both. Except I shaved mine.
Oh, okay.
So I sort of look at this, and I'm with you. I think Justin Fields is sort of improving. I feel like Kyler Murray, some junk football. There needs to be some street football thrown into the game where they design plays that look broken. Have you seen like these quarterbacks that just do well with broken plays? And like Kyler Murray ran like 80 yards for a 7-yard 2-point conversion last week. I saw the stat on it. It was hilarious. Some of these guys just play better when they're out of the pocket, play better with less traditional approaches to the game. I think they know that in Chicago about Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields a lot. I like David Montgomery. There's more that I like about the Bears than the Texans. So I'm with you on the Bears.
Hey, let me ask you this. The quarterback of Houston, Davis Mills, and the quarterback of Chicago, Justin Fields. Would you take either one of those guys over Kirk Cousins? Because I think I'd take both of them. I'm putting you on the spot now.
Okay. So I can't in good conscience agree with you. I wanted to take Justin Fields. Like, I want to believe in Justin Fields. I need to see more than we've seen so far. But what we do know about Kirk Cousins is you're basically never going to win. You're never going to get to Super Bowl because playoff games sometimes are played at night. And that right there is like, when are you going to cut your losses? I'm on to you, Brad. I finally agree with you that the Vikings aren't going to win anything until they move off of Kirk Cousins. I just don't know that either of those guys, after seeing them both in the NFL for the last couple of years, I'd be willing to risk it at that point. All right.
Hey, you like my Bob Dylan hat, by the way? Look at that.
Love the Dylan.
Huh? I went and saw Dylan before the pandemic at UC Irvine. One of the greatest concerts I've ever seen. He didn't play one of his big hits, not one, from way back when. And it was just phenomenal. His band was off the charts. I had very low expectations going in, and it was amazingly well done.
That's awesome. I get to go watch Kevin Hart do some stand-up in the next couple weeks at Chase Center in San Francisco. So hopefully he'll continue to make some jokes about how he had the vid, and then we're seeing Elton John's 18th farewell tour at Levi's Stadium. So it was bad enough when I saw him 10 years ago in Vegas at Caesars in a confined auditorium. I just can't imagine how poor it's going to sound in an outdoor stadium which seats 80,000 people. All right, moving on to the next game here. Let me pull it up. Eagles at the Commanders. Fly, Eagles fly. Over under on this game is 47 points. Absolutely love Kelsey, the center of the Eagles. I look at what Jalen Hurts did last week against the Vikings. I think he'll have even more success against the Commander defense, because nobody is like fearful of the Commanders, are they? I was gonna make a joke, but it was inappropriate. But this Commander organization is just an absolute mess from the front office down. I still believe in Ron Rivera as a head coach. This is Carson Wentz's revenge game, I guess. I think the Eagles have way too many weapons. They'll score over 30 points in this game, and Scary Terry will have at least 2 touchdowns. So I think the over is the way I'm headed.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. First of all, I could see the Eagles scoring 47 themselves. I mean, that's a really good offense. I don't know, but first of all, I can't get the Commanders thing. That's just not working for me. I mean, I got used. I got used to the Guardians. I can get used to that. I'm not real thrilled about that with the Cleveland Guardians.
I'm glad you brought this up. So what I said about that is, so you're the Washington football team last year, right? And you have to make a change because you have a logo and a thing that caused a lot of issues. So what do you do, Brad? What do? You come up with a name called the Commanders, which is the very people that will go out and hunt down the people that you got in trouble for talking about in the first place. I can't believe that they went with the name the Commanders. I'm serious. It's like it's unbelievable.
I can't believe they went with Carson Wentz. So, I mean, by the way, don't even get me started on Matt Ryan. I threw around a lot of, I sent you a bunch of texts on that last week, and we can get into that afterwards. No, I'm with you. I'm going to go the over 47. It was kind of a mediocre line. I didn't think much. Probably not a game that I would have bet, but I'm going to go in agreement with you here and say that the Eagles got plenty of offense. They could score 47 themselves, and I think there's enough firepower there with Washington that they can score 15, 20 points and make this a game that goes well into the 50s.
Yeah. Not really too much else to say on this Washington football team. They've got some nice weapons, some nice young wide receivers outside of just Scary Terry. And Carson's, he's okay. I mean, if anything, Brad, he's proven that he's light years ahead of Matt Ryan, which we can talk about later if you like.
All right, my final game is the Bengals at the Jets, and I just saw your comments that you put in on the Google Doc that the Bengals can't stop Joe Flacco. But I got a sense the Bengals can stop Joe Flacco. Interestingly, the Bengals are 0-2. This is a team that was in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine if they were to go into New York and lose to the Jets and be 0-3? I can't imagine it either. I have to believe the Bengals are going to get back on track. Yes, the Jets are an improving young team, but it is Joe Flacco. Here's the difference between week 1, 2, and 3 for the Bengals. In week 1, they went up against Watt, the defensive end. And then last week, they went up against the great young defenders that the Cowboys have. This week, they're going against the Jets. And I think Cincinnati gets on track. They score a lot of points. They win big. I'm taking the Bengals. I'm giving the 4.5.
All right. I like this game and like for the Jets to come back and beat the Cleveland Browns in that game, Brad, last week.
That was fun. It was fun, by the way. It
was fun. I didn't have a problem with it at all. I'm sure. What's the head coach in Los Angeles, the Chargers, Brandon Staley?
Yeah,
I'm sure he called up Kevin Stefanski and said, "Oh yeah, I agree, Kevin. It was a good idea to tell Nick Chubb to go score a touchdown. When all Chubb had to do was go down, and they would have won the game. It is ridiculous. It's bad coaching everywhere. So I looked at this and I said, Flacco just seemed, I don't know. It was like he
old. Is that the
word? Seems old. He definitely seems old. I'll give you this: the Bengals defense is better than. But are they really better than the Cleveland Browns? The Cleveland Browns defense. It's hard to say. It looks like we have a special appearance.
Yeah, this is one of my new additions here. And she is about 4 months old. This is Trixie, one of two. They were 8 pounds, these dogs, 2.5 months ago. And as you can tell, they're not 8 pounds anymore, Dave. So, but I had to get her in there.
It's when Rocky jumps up on my lap, it's like a feather compared to what you're doing. Hey, the Bengals are in need of some offensive linemen, Brad. And that right there, though, like the offensive lineman issue that the Bengals are having, I don't know that, even though it is against this less than powerful Jets defense, I just, there's something tells me that the Jets are going to find a way. So I'm going to take the I'm going to take the points. How many points are you giving me? 4.5. I'm going to take your 4.5 points. I'm going to say the Bengals are going to win, but I'm going with the Jets.
Yeah, I just get a sense that this is a different animal. And I looked at the matchups the last 2 weeks, and they had Watt in week 1 for Pittsburgh, and they shouldn't have lost that game, and they did. And then they fell to the Cowboys last week, who got, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Again, really good guys that could put pressure on you from off the edge. They're going to take advantage of a beat-up offensive line. I just don't see that with the Jets.
Yeah.
And I think that affords Burrow the ability to, get back with his buddy Jamar Chase and getting Joe Mixon going. I think they're just going to see a different offense, and I don't think the Jets can keep pace.
Yeah. All right, on to our last game. Now, Brad, let me ask you a question. Did you know that like Russell Wilson was so hated by his former players in Seattle?
I did not know.
Like the stuff that's coming out. It's not just a couple guys. It's one of these guys that sort of rubs people the wrong way is the best way of sort of describing what happened with Russell Wilson there. So this has been like my favorite topic of this young football season, and it is the completely over his head Nathaniel Hackett. Just watch him coach. I hope on Sunday Night Football, they're not going to do it, but I wish, like, if this was an Amazon Prime game, maybe they do it because they have all these different channels and things they can stream stuff on. But I would love to just see a coach's camera on Nathaniel Hackett throughout the entire game. This guy is clearly in over his head. He can't get calls in any sort of timely fashion. And then you add a little bit of pressure to the calls, making bad decisions. You've got a quarterback that you just paid a ton of money to who doesn't want to do what he did to make that money in the first place, which is he would run around a little bit. The strength of Russell Wilson's game was the threat that he would leave the pocket, not that he would stay in the pocket. And these are things that should have been discussed before they proposed to each other. I'm just saying, like when you get married to somebody, Brad, you hope you know them, and you hope you cover some of the ways things are going to go. And I don't think any of that got done with this Broncos team. So now you got this drop back quarterback who doesn't have the arm strength that he used to have. You got a head coach who is calling the plays, who can't make decisions. At least in Philadelphia last year, Nick Sirianni, after 8 weeks of proving that he couldn't call plays, made the right decision and handed it over to somebody else. Look, the big claim to fame, and this was one of my favorite lines I saw in Nathaniel Hackett, was that Nathaniel Hackett's was really good friends with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay because he was with Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years, and they played darts together. And that was like one of the big claims to fame. Compliments to Nick Wright for that one, who brought that up on The Herd the other morning. I happened to hear it, and I thought it was a good line. So I look at this and I'm like, gosh, I sad to say, but I thought the 49ers were a far better team with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback. than Trey Lance. You know, a lot of people have been saying, you know, you just got to give Trey some time. You got to give him some time. And so that's the world that we were living in. Sad to see him get hurt. But this 49er team is just so much better with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback, and the defense is absolutely for real. So I've got the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to take the 49ers. I'd rather see Buddy Hackett as the coach of the Broncos. I mean, at least he was funny. But what's the line on this one, Dave? Like 2.5, something like that? That seems like kind of a silly line. It's almost like they're, you know, maybe they know something I don't know. One of those things.
Yeah.
I've seen nothing from the Broncos so far that makes me believe that you know, I think we all thought that, wow, the AFC West is going to be amazing with Kansas City and the Chargers and Denver and really it looks like Kansas City. That's what it looks like to me. I haven't seen much from any of the other three teams, and you know how I feel about the Chargers coach. I love the talent there, but I'm with you. I'm going to go against the Broncos in this one. I haven't seen anything. Yeah, I think the Broncos really missed Tim Patrick. I thought he was a very undervalued player for that team, and I think he's out injured this year. Not going to play this year, ACL or something. And so they just haven't found themselves there yet. Maybe they do this weekend. I don't know. But I wasn't intrigued enough by what I've seen so far to go against the Niners. I said at the beginning of the year that was my team to go to the Super Bowl. I predicted the Niners and the Bengals. The Bengals haven't looked good so far. The Niners. One of the reasons I took the Niners is because I said I thought Jimmy Garoppolo would be starting by Week 5. Right. Now I didn't think it was going to be because of an injury. I just didn't think much of Trey Lance, and so they just the injury to Lance just kind of expedited that process a little bit. Garoppolo knows that team. He knows the players. I think they're comfortable with him. I don't think they miss a beat. I think they go into Denver, and I think they win that game.
I agree with everything you said. Look, this Denver defense is still really good defense. And they've got, you know, decent weapons. They've got two really solid running backs in Denver. They've got three really good wide receivers. You know, the offensive line isn't horrific. This team should be a lot better than it is. And this is why I always say coaching matters. And this is what happens when you put somebody in over their head and the cream can't rise to the top because the coach is preventing that from occurring. He's got like what you're making chili right now, right, Brad? Yeah, and so you got like a cover on top of your chili, and it's like Nathaniel Hackett is the cover, and he's preventing the good smells of the chili from flowing throughout the house.
Oh man, that was a poor analogy, by the way. Anyways, we got to get out of here. Look, we got to talk about Matt Ryan. Come on.
All right, Brad. You've been itching for days to talk about Matt Ryan.
No, because during that game, I sent Dave a text. I said, how do you think the people in Indianapolis are feeling about Matt Ryan right about now? I got almost nothing back from Dab on that one.
Yeah, I was like, I was sitting there thinking, oh, they're missing Carson Wentz, and then I'm like, no, they're missing Phillip Rivers. I'm like, no, they're missing Andrew Luck. It's just the whole Andrew Luck thing has set that organization back for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know how hard it is to get shut out in a National Football League game, Dave.
Oh yeah.
So they got shut out by the Jaguars. Okay, I mean that we're not talking about the steel curtain or the doomsday defense or we're talking about the Jaguars shut them out 24-0. That to me
Yeah, and Mr. Harlequin romance novel cover quarterback, Trevor Lawrence with his long locks of hair. He looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback in that game for the most part.
Hey, you look at their opening. Let's not forget they didn't look good in tying the Texans the week earlier. Now they get the Chiefs this week. How's that going to go for them? You might have, this thing is spiraling out of control. The only thing that's saving this team is I look at their schedule, and they have, at least during the first half of the schedule, got to be one of the softest schedules that there is in the league.
They can't win any of the soft games.
Yeah, other than that Chiefs game, they get the Titans who don't look great. They get the Broncos. They get the Jags again. They get the Titans again. Then they get the Commanders. There's not a lot on that early part of that schedule, which leads me to believe they have an opportunity to bounce back. But Matt Ryan,
I mean, how great would it be if the Jaguars go into Indianapolis and they shut them out again? I mean, it's like how absolutely great would that be? All right, Mr. Hoysef, we got to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBopp up in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.